What's going on, dudes and dudettes? And today I'm going to have a bit of an interesting one for you. So yesterday, if you didn't happen to catch it, Sony had a PS5 games live stream where they showed off a bunch of different games and gameplay for titles coming to the PS5. You know, pretty standard stuff. And a lot of it looked great. I mean, if you've been following console gaming in any form for the past 7 years, you'd know that generally speaking, Sony doesn't really miss the target with their exclusives. I mean, of course, every now and again we have the odd controversy, but for the most part, they're pretty damn good. I'm personally most excited for Spider-Man Miles Morales and God of War Ragnarok, even though we didn't get to see any gameplay of the latter. Anyways, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the price. So if you guys didn't catch the live stream or haven't been on the internet for the past 24 hours, the regular PS5 was unveiled at $499, while the digital version was priced at $399. Pre-orders also went live and I barely managed to snag one. If you didn't, don't be disappointed. Keep checking your online retailers. I actually missed the first wave myself, but happened to check back at Best Buy at 4 AM where they happened to become available for a short period of time again. And I honestly gotta say, this is a pretty semi-aggressive price point. Like, don't get me wrong, $399 is really good news. I mean, it's the price we're all used to, and also the price the PS4 launched at. But you'd think after 7 years worth of inflation, the cheaper console would have at least been $450. But it isn't. Why is that? Well, let me just start out by saying that Sony is definitely losing money on the digital edition of this console, and they might barely be making ends meet with the disc version as well. If you guys didn't know, it has been rumored that a regular PS5 costs around $450 to assemble, give or take. Now, that's just a rumor, and it could very well cost more. And after doing a lot of breakdowns of the tech inside it here on the channel, I wouldn't be surprised to find out that it actually costs in the neighborhood of $460 or $470 to build. And add in, let's say, an average shipping and packaging cost of $5 per console, and whatever cut retailers get for delivering the product to the consumer, let's say $15, which I think is pretty reasonable. And Sony might barely be making any money on these things, even selling them at $499. And you could kind of see the same trend for the Xbox Series X, whose SoC, or the main board that contains the processor, graphics, and RAM, was rumored to cost around $490 to make. That being said, if that's the case, how could Sony have possibly afforded to make the digital version of the PS5 cost $399? And honestly, I'm still trying to figure that out myself, but I think I have a pretty good idea, and it might be a bit more cynical than meets the eye. So as you might have guessed, there's absolutely a 0% chance that simply removing a Blu-ray optical drive will drop the price of this console, or any piece of tech really, by $100. There's just no way. And if you were to look up 4K Blu-ray player, which is what the PS5 doubles as, you might be led to believe otherwise, as most entry-level 4K Blu-ray players start at $999 and could actually get pretty expensive. But one thing you have to remember is that Sony is one of the leading providers for Blu-ray players and might possibly be the biggest one in the world, so there should be no doubt that they've perfected this tech. And when it comes down to it, all a Blu-ray player is a media input and a microprocessor that runs infrared scanning and translates it to zeros and ones, so not particularly that complicated in theory. So by my own educated guess, and after poking around the internet and investigating some potential profit margins Sony has made on their regular Blu-ray players, I honestly believe that removing the drive might have only reduced the PS5's production price by roughly $30, which obviously isn't enough to account for the remaining $60 deficit the PS5 Digital Edition might be facing. So what's the catch? Could Sony really be doing this for the sake of competition with Microsoft, or potentially out of the goodness of their hearts? You might be thinking that losing only $60 on each sale isn't that much, right? I mean, it's roughly the cost of a single game, and there have been plenty of PS4 bundles where they gave us 2 or even 3 games for no extra charge. So what's the big deal? Well, you'd be kind of right, but the situation the PS5 is in is a bit different for 2 main reasons. Reason number 1, the PS5 has a lot of recent tech in it. Unlike the PS4, which launched with outdated tech, meaning that when the PS4 launched it was already a year behind PC architecturally speaking, the PS5 has tech in it that hasn't even made its way to the PC market yet. In fact, the graphics architecture that the PS5 is using, RDNA 2.0, looks like it's gearing up for a somewhat simultaneous launch with the DIY PC market in the form of the RX 6000 series, which just started its promotional campaign a couple days ago. And there have even been reports that the graphics processor in the PS5 uses customized tech that won't be available to PC players until RDNA 3.0, which is slated to come out in 2021. But that's besides the whole point of this. The whole point of this is that unlike the PS4 at launch, the PS5 is recent. And as I'm sure you know, recent tech is undeniably more expensive to manufacture. So the reason Sony might have been able to cram 2 or 3 extra games in your recent PS4 Pro purchase is probably because 1, the games were probably old, and 2, you were buying 5-year-old tech. And 5-year-old tech might as well be 5 in dog years because technology moves fast. And I've never really said this on my channel because I always thought it was pretty obvious, but thanks to a lack of sufficient competition from Microsoft, Sony has been able to get away with murder when it comes to PS4 pricing up until now. Put simply, there is no way a brand new PS4 Pro in 2020 should be priced at $399. Today, the thing probably costs less than $170 to make, so they're most likely making a 128% profit on each sale. So of course they throw in like 2 or 3 extra games to make you feel like you were getting a good deal, when in reality, you probably aren't. And reason number 2 as to why the PS5 situation is different from the PS4's is because unlike the PS4, where Sony was reported to be barely breaking even on each sale back in 2013, a significant number of people are probably going to go for the PS5 Digital Edition to save the extra $100. Meaning, Sony chose to actively dig themselves into a financial pit because trust me, when this is all said and done, Sony will be down money in total PS5 sales. Let's just do some quick math to help illustrate this. If we say 50% of players opt for the cheaper digital version of the PS5, which I think is a pretty reasonable assumption, and that the PS5 sells 10 million units through March 2021, which if you've seen my should you buy PS5 now or later video, you'd know that this is also a pretty reasonable assumption, then that means 5 million digital edition PS5s will be sold. And 5 million units sold at a $60 deficit equates to roughly $300 million being left on the table. So it's obvious that they definitely did not plan to make money with this current price point combo they unveiled. So we're brought right back to the original question. Why would they do this? Why would Sony choose to deliberately lose money on what could possibly be the most competitive console generation of all time? To be competitive with Microsoft's Xbox Series X priced at $299? No, I don't think so. While the Series S might have been the icing on the cake to top off the decision to lose so much money, it definitely wasn't the main driving force. For that, my dear friends, you're going to have to give credit to the PlayStation Store. And you might be like, the PlayStation Store? You mean where I buy my games? What does that have to do with anything? Well, for those of you who might not be aware of how it works, games you buy physically like from GameStop, Walmart, or wherever actually don't reserve any of the $60 you pay for Sony. I mean, sure, the publishers like Activision or Rockstar have to pay royalties and licensing fees just to become a PlayStation game, but they only have to do that once, so not for every copy of a game, and they are typically very inexpensive in the grand scheme of things. Now, when it comes to games made by PlayStation Studios like God of War or The Last of Us, Sony obviously makes the majority of that money, even if bought physically. But for other games by other publishers like GTA or Call of Duty, they barely make anything when you buy those games physically. And for Sony, that's kind of an issue because games like GTA and Call of Duty sell millions upon millions each year. For Pete's sake, GTA 5 is the second best selling game of all time, second only to Minecraft. And at 135 million copies sold, every physical version of that game that left store shelves is a crime against humanity in Sony's eyes, because they make no money off of it. Now enter the PlayStation Store, where the paradigm shifts a little bit into Sony's favor. If you weren't aware, for every purchase made on the PS Store, Sony actually takes an industry standard 30% cut. And now you could probably see where this is going, regardless of who the game's publisher is, and that cut is absolutely massive. For every copy of any game, even if it didn't come from PlayStation Studios, Sony will get a guaranteed $21 from the $70, not to mention an extra, let's say average of $4 that is needed to be paid to license the thing. So taking away the disc drive guarantees to Sony that you will have to buy all of your games from the PlayStation Store, and assuming the average gamer buys 4 full price games a year, and that this console generation will last for 6 years, that's a guaranteed extra $588 that Sony will make from you over the course of this generation. This number might be a bit higher if some of those games were from the PlayStation Studios, which, let's be serious, some of them definitely will be, but it would for sure be lower if you had the option to purchase those games physically. So all of a sudden, the initial $60 loss Sony is taking on the PS5 Digital Edition becomes really insignificant if they're able to guarantee themselves $500 back, something that they can't do with the disc PS5. And we don't even need to stop at games. DLC, in-game currency, themes, outfits, emotes, guides, subscriptions. Sony will take a cut of all of that when you purchase a digital PS5, so it definitely makes sense why they wouldn't care if they lost $60 per console in the beginning, because they're thinking about the long game. And in the long run, the digital PS5 will be their moneymaker, not the disc version. Well, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to drop a like on it and subscribe. Oh, and hit that bell notification button if you're so inclined. That's gonna do it for me, dudes and dudettes. I've been Innocence, you've been the audience, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.